JMSDFs, we have 5 main ports in Japan. From north Minato in Aomori prefectures near Misawa Air Force Base, and Yokosuka and Maizuru in Kyoto prefectures, and Kure in Hiroshima prefectures, and Sasebo. And in Yokosuka and Sasebo, we share the space of the base partly with the US Navy. And next slide shows the location of the air base of the JMSDF. And as well as the Yokosuka and Sasebo, we share the space with the US Navy or US Marine Corps in Atsugi and Iwakuni. And the size of our JMSDF is on the screens. We have 150 ships and 340 aircrafts and 49,000 personnel. Ships includes the destroyers, 53 destroyers, and 24 minesweepers, and 16 submarines. And aircraft includes mainly the aircraft of the anti-submarine aircraft, such as the P-3 patrol aircraft and SH-60 C4. And by the way, this shows the size of the US 7th Fleet stationed in Japan. 7th Fleet has 20 vessels, including aircraft carriers, George Washingtons, and 2 Typhoon Terror class cruisers, and 7 DDGs, Aegis destroyers, and amphibious assault ship. And also it has 16 aircraft, mainly aboard on the George Washington. And some may realize that JMSDF has kind of the defensive capabilities force, such as mine sweepings or the anti-submarine aircraft for anti-submarine aircraft. On the other hand, the US 7th Fleet has a strike force, such as aircraft carriers or amphibious assault. And next slide shows the components of the capabilities of our navies. And the blue graph shows the capabilities of the US navies, and the red graph shows the capability of the JMSDF by each functions or by each warfare. As you can see, the US Navy focused on the strike force or offensive capabilities, such as air warfare, amphibious assaults. Meanwhile, the JMSDF has much emphasis on the defensive capabilities, such as the anti-submarines or mine sweeping or logistic support or surveillance. So this means JMSDF and US Navy constitutes the well balanced naval forces if we work together. So this is the reason why the close relationship between the US navies and JMSDF is the driving force to secure our alliance. So some say the US Navy is a spears and JMSDF is a shield. And And as the introductions of the capital system, one of the best, one of the typical examples or typical accomplishments of a close relationship is minesweeping operations in Persian Gulf in 1991. These operations was historic operations, not only for JMSDFs but also for Japan itself. Because Japan had never dispatched military forces abroad after the end of the Second World War because of the restrictions of our pacifist constitutions. However, with increasing necessities of the international cooperations after the collapse of the Soviet Union or the end of the Cold Wars, Japan finally decided to dispatch military forces abroad. And after the end of the first Gulf Wars in 1991. And in these operations, JMSDF worked closely together with the US Navy, and we accomplished successfully our missions. And these missions, these accomplishments is developed by our bilateral exercise, which has been conducted since 1955. We always conduct a joint exercise with the U.S. Navies, and the largest one is the annual exercise, in which the U.S. 7th Fleet take part in. And not only the joint exercise, Japanese JMSDFs deploys the ships or submarines or aircraft every year to the U.S. To develop interoperabilities with the U.S. Navy. And these pictures is taken at the annual exercise. And as well as annual exercise, every 2 years, Japan take part in a Limbo-Pacific exercise, in which we have developed cooperation with the U.S. Navy. And most noteworthy events, noteworthy partnership in the recent years is the ballistic missile defense. Japan, JMSDFs and the U.S. Navy have worked together to establish ballistic missile defense systems. And Japan succeeded in the firing test with support from the U.S. Navy. And in 2009, JMSDFs and U.S. Navy deployed in 2009 when the North Korea fires the ballistic missiles. At that time, the U.S. Navy and JMSDFs deployed Aegis capable destroyers to the Sea of Japan and worked closely together. And according to the 2010 ballistic missile defense review reports published by the DoDs, this U.S.-Japan partnership is an outstanding example. So I think that this is the evidence that the importance of our close relationship. And in addition to these exercise or the partnerships, we always conduct exercise with the U.S. Navy, such as midshipman cruise or anti-submarine ASW exercise or transportation exercise or the mine disposal exercise. So again, the alliance of our alliance is the most important in the world, and the core of our alliance is the Navy-to-Navy relationship. So you will be a great, important players for this alliance. So I think you can, if you are assigned to Japan, after you are assigned to Japan, you can enjoy your job, and not only the jobs, but also you can enjoy your private life in Japan. In Japan, near Yokosuka or Sasebo, there are a lot of interesting places, such as the big cities or the ancient cities. So I hope you enjoyed your job and your life in Japan. That's all.
It's my turn. So as your Lieutenant Commander Noma mentioned, you have to enjoy Japanese life in Japan. So already many of you is already assigned to Japan. And I believe other midshipmen also desire to stay in Japan. Is that right? Okay. So So at first, if you get an assignment in Japan, I like to strongly recommend for you to live off base. Okay? And even if you got a very nice Navy housing in the base or in some area of Japan, still I recommend you to get out of the base as much as possible. Okay? Because by doing that, you can feel or touch the Japanese culture. Okay? But in this case, culture is not necessarily like a ancient temple or ancient shrine or very traditional festival. Okay? In every DVD of the introduction of Japanese culture, show up something like a very ancient Japan. But even in daily life of Japanese daily life, there is still culture or some behavior with cultural background. And by living in off base, you can touch the culture. And also, by touching the other culture, you can get a wide perspective. But more important thing is, you can identify yourself, okay, by comparison with other culture. Okay? You can find out very new yourself. Okay? That is very, I think that's exciting thing for us to living in other countries. So now I like to explain about cultural background, okay, Japanese cultural background. Okay? They say the Japanese culture is more collectivism than US one. Okay? I agree with that. In general, Japanese culture is collectivism, and maybe maybe a social psychologist say collectivism, a political scientists say communitarianism. Okay? I almost write in town, communitarianism. And the easy way is group-oriented culture. Okay? Very beginning of the 7th century, okay, the very important document was issued. Okay? It's in 604. Okay? the name of the document is 17 Article Constitution. Okay. And the first article of the Constitution, starting from very famous phrase, that is, 和をもって尊しとなす in Japanese. Okay. In English, okay. Harmony is to be valued. So, to Japanese, harmony is very important. You know, so many scholars believe this phrase is well representing the characteristic of Japanese culture. Okay. You know, harmony must be first. Okay. So we can find out, we can find a very Japanese behavior from this idea. For example, when we decide something in the group, okay, maybe the decision must be made through consensus with discussion, rather than voting. Okay. As much as possible, we try to reach a consensus, okay, before voting. Of course, finally we vote, but maybe we try to avoid the voting because, okay, sometimes voting produces kind of unnecessarily dispute or conflict among the members. Okay, that's why we try to avoid that. So to maintain the harmony, okay, maintain the harmony is very important for Japanese. Okay. That's why when you live in live off base, okay, so, the most important thing, you have to consider the feeling of others or neighbors. Okay? Living off base means you are a member of the community, right? Okay? And you have to pay some consideration for the other's feeling. Okay? So for example, the home party. Okay? In general, the distance between the people in Japan is very closer than the US. Physically, also psychologically. And because of the very small land, okay, the distance between houses is also very close. Okay? Even you can get a very nice house with a very nice yard, okay, still, the house is very close. Okay? Therefore, if you have a very noisy, nice party by midnight or over midnight, okay, it may annoy your neighbor. Okay? But maybe once a year it's not so big problem. Okay? But if you maybe even 2 times a year, it's not so big problem. But maybe maybe once every other month might be big problem. Okay? Of course, sometimes we Japanese also kind of such a big party, and in general, Japanese is very tolerant for the drunkard. That's why if we drink, we just singing, shouting, something like that. Okay, but and sometimes we forgot, the neighbor. Okay, but if you do that, okay, in next morning, okay, you should visit your neighbor and just excuse or apologize your party. Okay, it's a very safe way. Okay. Also, another example is, again, group-oriented community. Okay. In the community, there are kind of community association. We say chōnaikai. In United States, there is also house owner association, right? But this association is something like a very legal body, right? But in the Japanese case, it's very informal. But the informal association still got money from the local government. And they manage the local rule of the community. Okay? And the residents pay some association fee, not so big money. If you rent the house, maybe owner may pay the fee. Okay? But in some cases, you may be asked some officer of the community association to pay maybe a couple hundred yen or 300 yen a month. Maybe please do not hesitate to pay. So paying is better. It's very small money. And the association manage everything in the community. Okay? And talking about garbage collection. Okay? Yeah, city or town government, collect the garbage. Okay? But in your case, you can just put the trash can in front of your house, right? Because distance between the house is very, relatively longer than Japan, right? But in the case of Japan, there are a lot of houses. Therefore, the community decided some particular place for the garbage collection. So you can put the trash can. The particular garbage must put on particular day of the week. It's very strict. Okay? And the member of the community, they clean up the station in turn. Okay? And the association decided the turn. Does that make sense? Okay? But maybe you are foreigner. Therefore, some association, waive you from such a duty. But you have to think, okay, always the station is cleaned up. But who is cleaning up? That is your neighbor, voluntarily. But it's something like an informal obligation. Okay? Even if you are waived from such an obligation, or from such a voluntary obligation, you should think, so someone can do that. Okay? So that is the Japanese way. Okay? Now, if I pick up something like such a characteristic of the Japanese culture, maybe I can make a long list, okay? Long list. But again, you should not annoy others. Okay? You should consider others. That is a way for you to live in Japan. Okay? That is important. Okay, and yeah. I would like to explain about one important technique for you to communicate with Japanese. Actually, this is not cultural issue. Okay? Maybe this is a language issue. I'm a little bit afraid, to explain something like that, in front of Danzai Sensei. So, but, even you, all of you is learning Japanese? Most of you is learning Japanese? Okay. I believe you are very good students for Japanese. Okay. But, but trust me, it is almost impossible for you to communicate with Japanese only in Japanese. Okay. Okay. Of course, you should use Japanese as much as possible. Okay. Using local language, produce a good relationship with your neighbor. Okay. But sometimes, in many cases, you have to ask something to Japanese in English, okay, because English is your mother tongue. Okay. And most Japanese have learned English for 6 years, particularly in middle school and high school. 6 years, okay, it's quite a long time. Okay. But most Japanese cannot catch you. The biggest problem is, the Japanese has not so a lot of opportunity to use English, okay, to use English with native speaker. Okay. And also, Japanese language, any single word of Japanese language is, every single consonant coming from with vowel. That means Japanese word is very clear for us. Okay. And we cannot catch just consonant, right? Sometimes you say, I cannot, I can't, cannot. It's kind of disaster for me. Okay? So that's why, if you write, but most Japanese learn English for 6 years. Only lack is experience. Therefore, if you speak English very slowly, clearly, with opening mouth, okay, clearly, most Japanese can understand what you like to say. And also, another one is, if she or he cannot catch you, in such a case, you should not paraphrase. You should repeat exactly same sentence. Okay? You know, sometimes, you know, someone asks me, you know, so what's your name, sir? Okay? And excuse me? So I'm asking your name. So, you know, that's a paraphrasing, right? The paraphrasing brings us back to the start point. Okay? So please repeat precisely. And still, they cannot catch you. That means they don't have some specific word. They cannot understand specific. In such a case, you should paraphrase. Okay? So at first, you have to precisely repeat, and then paraphrasing with simple sentence. Okay? With simple sentence. With simple sentence is also very important. Maybe, you know, for the Japanese, maybe avoiding the modal. It's better way. Okay? Without modal and simple sentence, and slowly, clearly, and repeating, and then paraphrasing. That is tactics, you know, for you to communicate with Japanese in English. Okay. So, and also, I give you some another. Actually, no. When you arrive in Japan, you need not worry about housing itself. You know, the base has housing department, and you know, and they have long list for the very nice house, and also, you know, there is kind you know, a real estate agency which is focusing on the American military servicemen. Okay, you know, they are really proficient. Okay, actually, I'm renting my house to the DOD teacher in Yokosuka right now. Okay, so trust me. So you can get a very nice house. Okay, okay. Anyway, next is car driving. Okay. You know, maybe it is very difficult for you to find out parking place in major city like Tokyo. Okay. So therefore, if you like to go to Tokyo, I recommend for you to use public transportation. But if you like to go to some, you know, some rural area, you know, the car is very, you know, good tool for you. Okay. But
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but I heard that we didn't really need to get a car necessarily because there's good enough public transportation.
yes, you know, yeah, true. Because, you know, you can rent car.
Okay.
Okay. You know, depending on the destination, sometimes car is better. But in general, you know, maybe you can reach any place by public transportation. But sometimes, depending on the destination, the car is much faster. Okay. But you know, in general, public transportation is very good.
Okay.
And anyway, let's talk about driving car. You know, there are several small differences, but very important differences between, you know, the transported traffic rule. Okay. The first, there is no four-way stop. Okay, that means, you know, if you look at the stop sign, okay, that means only your way, only other way has a right of way. Okay, you have to stop, and you have to wait the clear of the other traffic. Okay, that's a big difference. And another one is, you know, the traffic signal for the right turn. That means in the United States, left turn. Okay, the right turn arrow must show up after other traffic is clear. In the United States, okay, in the United States, after red sign, at first the left turn signal is shown up, right? In Japan, it's other. Therefore, when you find out the green light, you can, and also you have to proceed to center of the intersection. In the United States, you have to stop, right, before the intersection. And then red, and the red signal turn to the green signal with the arrow, and you can go through, right? But in Japan, it's upside down. Okay, therefore you have to proceed to the center of the intersection. Okay, and then you can get the right arrow. Of course, sometimes there is no arrow, but in such a case, both traffic has red sign. During the red sign, you can turn to red. So those 2 points is big differences between Japan and US. Okay, so I like to back a little bit of the cultural issue. I explained, the kind of the cultural issue. In particular, you have to consider the feeling of the others, right? Okay, but it does not. It is not necessarily that all Japanese is doing so. That makes sense? Particularly young generations. Okay, even Japanese, violate against such a good manner. But important thing is, for any country, okay, the people tend to see the foreigner with partial eye. Okay? Therefore, for your reputation, for your navy reputation, for your country reputation, okay, maybe you have to be more Japanese. Okay. So that is my opinion. So maybe you have a lot of question. We can take your question from now on, and not necessarily for the culture of daily life. You can ask anything. Japanese politics, basic issue, or our navy, or even our army. And also the again cultures, anything. Okay. So we have 20 minutes, right?
Do you know what some good resources like online would be for learning language or some of these cultural nuances?
Oh, it's very tough questions. So it must be written in English, right? I have no idea about such a website because I did not that. So do you have any idea?
I'm Professor Pennington. I teach history, and my specialty is Japanese history. And I've lived for a number of years in Japan in various capacities. When I was living in Japan, the first time I went there, actually there was no internet, and so it was hard, to find resources like that. One thing you could look at, there's a very nice English language newspaper for Japan called the Japan Times. That would maybe have linked to it some resources for people who are living in Japan. There is also, it sounds odd, but there is an Amazon.com for Japan that has English language material available through Amazon. It's amazon.co.jp. And if you went there, there may be some links to perhaps some useful websites for foreigners living in Japan. I can't think of anything in particular off the top of my head that might be helpful, but if you hunt around, there'd be some things that would be helpful, I'm sure.
I don't know if the series, when I was in Asia, there was a series called Culture Shock that printed books that would go through all of the possible ways that you should behave or not behave, or ways that you might unintentionally insult someone in the country that you were in. And I think they must make one for Japan. I think the series is just called like Culture Shock Japan. When I was in Thailand, it was Culture Shock Thailand. And if I remember, I saw some of them for Singapore as well. In some ways, they're a little bit old-fashioned. People told me that the manners that they're talking about are maybe the manners of a generation ago. But as Sensei was saying, that there was, I think you can't go wrong by being too polite. You can't go wrong by being a little bit old-fashioned or a little bit conservative in your behavior if you're a foreigner in if you're a foreigner in Japan or in any other country. So I like them. They're funny examples, things that you should never do, things that you should always do, easy to read. They're usually sometimes cartoons to illustrate what not to do.
There's questions.
So, I know Japan recently elected a new government, but could you maybe briefly explain like the political situation in Japan? Just like the politics in Japan right now, or the current government?
So just my comment on the
In
current government.
general.
In general, okay. The political issue is a very tough question for the military officers. Okay. But frankly, because of the other side of the Pacific, okay, I really worry about the current government. Okay, the DPJ is current ruling party. Okay, but the DPJ is composed of a very wide ideological basis, from left to right, also from pro-American or pro-Western to anti-American or anti-Western, or could be pro-Asian. It's really diverse people is staying in the party. Okay. The reason why the party can get the win, the last rulers, is I believe in general, so DPJ applies kind of tactics to brave the bureaucrat. Also, the connection between bureaucrat and former ruling party, LDP. And also there has been a lot of problem like a pension issue or some bribe, some very senior government official get a bribe, and and maybe some is true, but some is not I think not true. But because of the election, the DPJ applies the tactics to every single issue to attack the ruling party. Okay, but as long as such a tactics is enclosed in the domestic issue, I don't worry about so much. But even diplomatic or national security issue was used as a tool or weapon for the DPJ to attack LDP. So that is one problem. Is kind of symbolic problem is the Denmark Air Base, Marine Corps Air Base issue. Right now it's a big dispute. Okay. So maybe that is big problem. And but to me, it takes a short time to recover the balance. Okay. But just talking about national security issue, also the diplomacy, even DPJ get the balance like LDP have done. Okay. But the question is, how long the U.S. specialists for the Asia can wait for the Japanese regain the balance. That is question. Okay. That's why the Court Campbell, under Deputy Secretary of State, repeatedly says we have to be patient. Okay. That's an answer for the question. Yes, yes. Okay. So please think about the question. Okay. I already been talking about the basing issue. Okay, 24MAR base. I like to explain about differences between Okinawa and Yokosuka in terms of relationship between your armed force and local people. Okay. In general, the relationship in Yokosuka is much better than Okinawa. There are several reasons. Of course, Okinawa was only Japanese soil, which became to be battlefield during World War II. Actually, Iojima or Ioto is also Japanese soil, which was major battlefield. However, in the Iojima, there was no civilian. All civilians evacuated from the island before starting the battle. Okay. But in the Okinawa, 1 million people are still staying in the island. Okay. And they are involved to the battle. Okay. And also, they have been occupied by the U.S. forces or United States by early 70s. Okay. So, before we get the sovereignty over the Okinawa, there are more than 20 years. We spent more than 20 years. Okay. So that means, so maybe the Okinawan people is really frustrated about such a reality. That is a big difference between Yokosuka and Okinawa. But another big point is maybe attitude. It's again cultural issue. Attitude or behavior of the headquarters of armed force stationed in Okinawa or Yokosuka. Okay. Even in Yokosuka, there are a lot of problems like homicide, okay, or assaulting by the sailors. Okay. Of course, there are a lot of Japanese criminals. Again, not only foreigners do that, but also Japanese do that, same thing. Okay. But because of the foreigner, the people, look askance at such a criminal, foreigner criminal. Does that make sense? Okay. And in many cases, the U.S. Navy, the Sea Energy Commodore for Japan, really will manage such a crisis. Okay. So, in many cases, in the case of Okinawa, the commander is always try to protect the criminal, even if he or she is clearly commit such a bad thing. But they, at first, they try to protect the soldier. This is very, I know this is very important custom of your military. That each serviceman must be protected by your country. Okay, I know your idea, or I know the system. Well, of course, Japanese government did the same thing. Okay, but in the case of very clear, even in very clear case, at first, the armed force in Okinawa try to protect the person before apologizing, or rather than apologizing. Okay. But in the case of Yokosuka, okay, in many cases, the Yokosuka base, of course, they try to protect such a criminal, but simultaneously, they express their condolence or their sympathy for the victims. Okay. The typical example is, the couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, okay, one middle-aged lady was killed by the sailor in early morning. Okay, they didn't know with each other. Just for getting the money, the sailor killed the woman. Okay, but just next day or maybe a couple of days later, okay, the commander of 7th Fleet and commander of Japan and the commander of George Washington Carrier Group, the CT-70, the total number of stars is 6. Okay, so 3 admirals visited to the funeral ceremony, and they pray precisely, with a very precise Buddhist way. And we know most of you is Christian, and Christian is, homotheist, right? Homotheist. Okay? But nevertheless, they follow the family's way. And the family feel, the admirals really respected the soul of the victim. And finally, what the family said? Family said, we hate the criminal, the sailor, but we never hate your organization or your navy. Okay? That is very important. Okay? So that is very important. Maybe it is not only for the Japanese, but maybe for the Iraq, for the Afghanistan, in all over the world. I think it's the same. Or maybe Japanese must do the same thing in the United States, right? Okay. But this is kind of fact of the differences between Yokosuka and Okinawa. That makes sense? Great. So do you have any other questions? No?
Do you know, as military personnel being stationed overseas, we're constantly dealing with Americans, but do you feel like it's easy enough to immerse yourself in the Japanese culture and still learn Japanese? Is it still feasible to immerse yourself in the culture and pick up Japanese even though you're speaking English with Japanese and Americans most of the time?
So the question is, even in English, so you can, whether or not you can pick up the Japanese culture. Maybe it's also a very tough question. Maybe because of the differences between the language, if you want to be expert of Japanese culture, you have to learn Japanese. Okay, like a opinion from sensei. Okay. Okay. But even without learning the local language, or with learning to some extent local language, okay, maybe you can catch some very important element of the culture. That's why I said I recommend you for you to live off face. Okay. Actually, tourists who just short visit to the other country cannot do that, right? And just they looking around very Asian or very traditional something, okay? And they think they touch the culture, but maybe it is not right. It's not correct. Okay? But even without language expert proficiency, okay? By touching, feeling the daily life, you can understand the cultural background to some extent. That is my opinion. Okay. So the other questions? No?
Can I make a follow-up point for what you just said, Captain? You can gain a lot by, as Captain said, immersing yourself in Japanese culture, and living off base would be a great way to do this. But it's important to understand that Japan is Japanese families can be very private. And if you are friendly to a Japanese family, for example, your neighbors, and you show interest in them, eventually you will be drawn into a very nice relationship with the families. And then if an invitation is offered for you to do something such as ikebana, which is flower arranging, or to go for hanami, to watch cherry blossoms fall, take advantage of these opportunities, but don't try to, Americans, we like to be very sort of in your face and direct. Sort of observe the rhythms of the interaction and just be polite and constant and thoughtful of people. Japan is in many ways an obligation society. And you're always having to sort of think of the perspective of the person you're interacting with. I think just immersing yourself in the rhythms of life will make you more cognizant of necessary knowledge, language, day-to-day knowledge, and just sort of being friendly and open and accommodating and curious will get you very far.
On that note, on what he said about obligation, I had read a little bit about Japanese culture. How important do you think it is that we think about that, like in our interactions? I mean, obviously you mentioned it. Like if someone does a favor for you or a neighbor does something for something like in a situation like that, I mean, obviously it's probably important that we're aware of that, and how, and in some cases, like how do we return that?
Return?
Like return a favor, or I mean, should we be aware of? I don't know. Does that make sense?
So just talking about the interaction with your neighbor, in general, you can do same way as you do in the United States. But, so please don't worry about so much. Okay. Okay. But just talking about kind of the private issue. For example, if you invited to your neighbor's house for the kind of home party, maybe in your custom, you guided the guests to all over around your house, right? Maybe I heard, I'm not sure this is correct, but some said this is really American culture, okay? And because of the as a result of the hard working, and that means it's an achievement of your career or your success. So by showing house, the American shows what you have achieved. I heard that. I'm not sure it is correct or not. But in the case of Japan, I mentioned Japanese culture is really group oriented. But what is group? There is several groups. Okay? Family is also group. Community is also group. Okay? In the town, very local town level community, also big community, and also company. Okay? Or some cultural circle. Okay? Each different. There are many different groups, in which the people belonging to. Okay? And living in the community means you will be a member of the community, but it does not mean you are a member of the family. Therefore, in the house, you can get into the group which is allowed for you to get in by the owner. And if the relationship becomes more deep, or deeper and deeper, sometimes some neighbor, just get into some house and freely walking around the house. Such a very deep relationship. Okay, so therefore, you have to identify what level you are belonging to that specific group or sphere. Okay. That's answer for the question. So that's all. So you are satisfied? Okay. So maybe I'm not sure. I have the time or opportunity for you to operate with each other. Okay. But the Lieutenant Commander Noma is going to leave here this summer. Okay. And I will leave in here in next summer. Okay. And if I'm lucky, I will go back to the sea. Okay. Okay. So there's some possibility for us to meet with each other, and the operate, conducting some operation with each other, not only for the exercise, but also in some case for the actual operations. Lieutenant Commander Noma explained kind of our bilateral relationship. Okay? And he mentioned in 2002 we deployed, both Navy deployed destroyers, each destroyer, to respond against North Korean missile shoot. But actually, we did same thing in 2006. Do you remember the dry force? The North Korea launched 7 missiles in the Sea of Japan. Okay. At the time, we deployed the Aegis cruisers and those destroyers side by side, and we connect the kind of linkage, and Japanese oilers supplied oil for you, for our ship and also for your ship. Okay. And also at the time, because of legal perspective, at the time, we create bilateral exercise, okay, for those ships deploying for responding the North Korean missile launch. Okay. They are operating, dealing with the North Korean missile. Simultaneously, they are conducted bilateral exercise, and according to our agreement, as long as you are conducting bilateral exercise, both sides mutually supply the oil or other stuff. Okay? So our Navy have done such a thing more than almost half centuries. Okay. Even under Cold War era, we did something like that. Even under severe constitutional restriction. Okay. So sometimes I say, we are so wily. Wily? Wily. So anyway, wily in the good way. Okay? Anyway. So I like to stop here.
Thank you very much, Captain Takahashi and Naval. Please give them big